Hello and welcome to this video guide for the Hellborn Grenade Psycho. So with this build you'll be able to use elemental grenades as a primary weapon, and you'll also be able to play like any other Hellborn Psycho using elemental weapons and status effects to melt your enemies. So let's start with the Hellborn component. If you've never built a Hellborn Psycho before, as soon as you invest into this right skill tree called Hellborn, uh, these initial starter skills will give you the chance to light yourself on fire when you're dealing fire damage to other enemies. So people will be wondering, why do you want to do that? Because if you're applying fire damage over time to someone else and you're applying fire damage over time to yourself, you're just going to be killing yourself, right? Yes and no. So there's two things to this. One, when you're on fire, you receive a lot of benefits from this right skill tree. And the second is you've really got to know how to invest your points so that you're not killing yourself. So let's start with not killing yourself, because if you're in a down state, you lose the self-immolation, you lose your on fire bonuses, all your damage goes out the window, and you're in a pretty difficult spot. So staying alive is going to be the first priority here. Which is why one of your first skills you're going to want to nab is Numbed Nerves. This will give you some damage reduction when you're on fire to stop yourself from burning to death. It'll also reduce the incoming damage from your enemies. So a really good one to have. The other skill you don't get till much further down, which is why this going Hellborn straight up can be a little bit tricky up until about level 25 or whatever. Elemental Empathy though means that when you deal status effect damage to somebody else, so we're not talking about bullet damage, we're talking about actually applying damage over time effects to enemies. When they are receiving those burns, shock damage over time, whatever it is, you will heal a portion of that damage. So this is how you can keep yourself alive as well. And then Raving Retribution will assist with that by just putting everybody around you on fire. Anytime when you're on fire and someone shoots you, it'll shoot a homing fireball back at an enemy. And by doing that, you'll have a whole room of enemies that are ignited, and you'll be receiving healing from all of those. Another useful skill here is Delusional Damage, which means that you can now self-immolate by applying any status effect. So I generally run around and just focus on slagging things, and I'll be igniting myself doing that. Raving Retribution and my grenades will take care of the rest. There's only a couple of skills in this skill tree that increase your damage. One is Burn Baby Burn. That'll increase your burn damage and only your burn damage. And then we've got Pain is Power. That will shift some weapon damage from critical hits to body shots. Scoring the critical hits will still deal more damage, but you know, when it increases your weapon damage by 25, reduces your critical hit by 25. If you can light yourself on fire, the on fire bonus will be 50%. So it's a good skill to have. Skills like Elemental Elation and Fire Fiend aren't overly useful. One increases your fire rate and your magazine size. The other one increases your accuracy and your reload speed. They will help you pump out some damage when Bloodbath activates. That's a kill skill. It'll increase your weapon damage for 8 seconds after you kill an enemy with a grenade or an explosion. So having some points in Elemental Elation and Fire Fiend will help make the most out of that skill in that short window. The other skill you need to consider is Flame Flare. Now this is a skill you don't need to max out, but you do need to put some points into it. Flame Flare will keep you self-immolated. It makes your self-burn last longer. It also makes the burn on others last longer. But by putting some points into this, it'll keep you self-immolated so you retain those bonuses. Things like Elemental Elation don't reset. You're not vulnerable because you've dropped Raving Retribution and you need to reignite yourself to get that back. So as long as you remain self-immolated in battle, you will keep healing from the burn damage, you'll keep your damage reduction, and you'll keep your stacks of Elemental Elation. So having some points in Flame Flare will keep the ball rolling. Now the other component to this is using grenades as a primary weapon. So to do that, the most important skill that you need to invest into is Bloodbath. So Bloodbath is our avenue to replenish our grenade count. How it works is it's a kill skill. If you can kill an enemy with a grenade or an explosion, it'll trigger that enemy to have a chance to drop grenades. Now, if you can invest enough points into this to exceed, go beyond 100% chance of that enemy dropping a grenade, any additional percentage that you have earned will go towards that enemy dropping a second grenade. So with 10 points here, I've got a 150% chance that the enemy will drop grenades. That's one guaranteed grenade and a 50% chance that they will drop a second grenade. The other cool thing about this skill is it increases your weapon damage depending on how many Bloodlust stacks you have. So with 10 points here, we've got 5% per stack, there's 100 stacks. That means that there's a maximum 500% increase to my gun damage for 8 seconds after I get a kill with a grenade or an explosion. That is a pretty big boost to your weapon damage. So it's a great skill to have. The downside here though is there's only 2 class mods that will actually increase Bloodbath. So one is the blister type class mod, and I would be going for a blue rarity that puts 6 points into this skill, because the other 2 skills the blister class mod offers are pretty useless. The other one is the legendary Reaper class mod, which I'm using. The benefits you can get from the legendary Reaper class mod is that the kill skill duration is much longer on the Reaper class mod, and it gives you some other handy skills like Thrill of the Kill and some extra points in Fuel the Fire. There's a couple of skills here that the Blister class mod offer, but they're going to be relatively useless. So I've tried doing this build with speccing around melee damage as well, and Buzz-Axe Rampage and things like that. But the thing is, to really get the benefits out of melee damage, you've got to go to the bottom of the Mania skill tree, which isn't something we want to do. I want Blood Splosion and I want Raving Retribution. And the reason why is because these 2 skills will provide opportunities for enemies to die to explosions and drop more grenades. So Raving Retribution, the explosion is when the homing fireball connects with the enemy. It's not the damage over time effect that gets applied afterwards. So it will do a chunk of damage when the fireball lands, and if they die to that chunk, they will drop a grenade. Now with Blood Splosion, that's based on excess damage. So overkill damage is what they call it. Any damage you deal to an enemy that was not needed to kill that enemy is considered overkill damage. Blood Splosion takes that extra damage that wasn't needed, it multiplies it by 5% per stack. So if you've got full Bloodlust, that's a maximum of 500% increase to that damage, and then it'll apply it to all enemies in a small area. Now this is where this build gets really cool, because you'll use a grenade like the Fastball that has a massive amount of damage on its weapon card and is designed to only hit one enemy. If you can kill an enemy, if they're really weak and you hit them with this, and that's increased by 500% and applied to everything else around it, you are going to just take out a group of enemies with one grenade. They're all going to drop grenades, and you're going to have too many grenades to know what to do with, know how to deal with it. So this is how this build works. With the Fastball, you will need to practice a little bit with it. There's a gameplay video that shows how when you are aiming the Fastball with a gun out, you've got to aim a little bit to the right of your target and compensate for the grenade drop. When you throw the grenade, the character will lean to the left when they release it. So you'll have to practice aiming with this thing to make sure that you are hitting an enemy dead on with it. And with a bit of practice, you'll be able to do that consistently. Another couple of things that help with this build is the Rough Rider for some additional damage resistance. Capacity on the Psycho is useless, so increasing that max health is really good. And again, the relics is doing the same thing. I'm increasing my max health there as well. There's no relics to increase your grenade damage. I'm not using my action skill at all, but you could also increase an element of your choice there to get damage that way. Anyway, with the other skills here, there's a lot in the Bloodlust skill tree that you're not going to get much out of. Things like Blood Overdrive, looks at face value, looks like it's a good skill, but unless you're willing to invest a lot of points into melee damage, you're just not going to be dealing enough melee damage to really get much out of that skill. So again, I'm using the Legendary Reaper class mod. That class mod really is designed to go to the bottom of the Mania skill tree and the bottom of the Bloodlust skill tree, and a little bit of the Hellborn, but it's based around melee damage for the most part. Give this build a run. This has been probably one of my most enjoyable ones. It probably works a little bit better using explosive grenades rather than elemental grenades, but a lot of fun. Give it a go.